Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of The Desk. My name is JCS, the owner, founder, ruler, grand poobah of OCWFED and its subsidiaries. Listener discretion is strongly advised. And on The Desk is basically my platform to rant, rave, bitch, and bemoan all things that encompass OCWFED and its subsidiaries. And once again, listener discretion is strongly advised. Last time we did this was last year, July 18th, 2023, and that was with a then rookie Devin Flash, and prior to that, the last one was August of 2022, and that was with Cena. Oddly enough, both will be at the pay-per-view this Sunday, 305. Devin will be defending the tag titles with Riot against Cold Front, and Cena will be trying to get back at the North American Championship. It's just funny how that works out. So it's been a minute, basically, and it comes down to time, which is fleeting, me being older, and then me really not having a lot of shit to say, because you do a stream, talk enough, like, what else do you really need? Really? Like, what else? Other than perhaps opinionated stuff, and we've learned that usually if I have an opinion, people get upset sometimes because it can come off a bit abrasive, which is fair, but at the end of the day, fuck all that. But anyway, I've been wanting to do this since October of the 5th. Because October 5th was actually something, a huge milestone, and I don't know if I mentioned it in Discord or the forum. I'm pretty sure I didn't. So essentially, October 5th of 2024 would and has marked our 20th anniversary, technically. That was when I bought the domain name, OCWFED.com, at 8 o'clock, 8:20, I think, on October 5th, 2004. So this is basically kind of a weird historical retrospective of like the 20 years we've been here. Obviously, I'm not covering 20 years of OCW. That would be insane, and someone more qualified wouldn't be here to have to assist me, like a Jake Allen or B17 or both or Nate Ortiz, stuff like that. I'm just hopping around some basic whatever, because why the fuck not? We've been here 20 years, right? Why shouldn't I just give a brief history lesson for those that care? I know sometimes history is like, yeah, I don't care. Well, fuck you. It's not for you. Turn this off. Go play with yourself or something. I don't care. But it's just, I sat back and I fucking thought about it. Like when it happened on the 5th of this year, I was like, oh shit. I'm not a celebratory person for the most part. Like, yeah, I don't know my birthday either for a specific reason. I don't know. It's like weird to me. Like, oh, look at us, but it is something that should be celebrated, and I do. We'll be celebrating officially in December with the event, but the day itself was like 2 weeks ago. And the funny thing about that is that back in the day, we used to actually have the anniversary show sometime in October, and that got shifted around. So I'll go figure. But yeah, think about it. It has been 20 years of OCWFED. Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit. And the quality has always been from good back then, okay back then, to good, to great, to amazing. I guess in the present iteration. And that should be celebrated, regardless if you're a history buff or if you're a schmeckle who doesn't care about history because you're fucking selfish or whatever. I don't know why I'm like putting these people in a box like that, but I don't know. Just in my bag, I guess. So the funny thing is, the form was made in October 5th, 2004. I was a young man. I had hair back then. It was a good time. And we didn't really get going. I'm trying to think. I think we got going officially in maybe November, December. I'd have to check the way back machine. It might be sometime between December and January. But before we even got going, there's a little side trivia to this, because while the website was designated and the domain was bought in 2004 on October 5th, the actual website itself was done prior to that with the help of a dude named Ilgis, or Fear Style. I'll just use it like that, Fear Style. And a dude named Dan, Dirty Dan. we're still friends to this day. As a matter of fact, we went to dinner, like a couple days ago, and then I'll be at their wedding in May. So he's been around a long time. That was the initial coder that coded all of my crazy ideas, which we'll talk about in a little bit. This is probably gonna be a while, by the way. So just know that it's gonna be like a lot. Maybe, who knows? Maybe I'll get tired and just go to sleep because my back is dead. That's when you get old and you get hurt yourself. But the website took maybe 2 months to bring up. But prior to that, there was like a massive workshop session, maybe a year prior to that. And then building up to that, like to take you back to the late 90s, I was always fascinated with the internet. I got it when I was at maybe 14, 15. I think my 8th grade graduation is when I got a PC. I got an IBM Aptiva. And immediately I learned about bulletin board systems. I actually learned about those on the Commodore 64 back in the day that my folks had. And I remember like somehow getting it on a bulletin board using the phone. And I was getting a big bill back in the early 90s and doing my best to avoid an ass whooping for fucking up the phone bill back in the day. Anyway, suffice to say, I was always one of those kind of kids who was always interested in ideas and shit. So we fast forward to me in 8th grade, get a PC, hook up with some people on a local area network thing, or rather wide area network was called the Wango. Learned to play Doom 2 via IPX. Like basically, long story short, it was like a local version of Xbox Live or PSN, I guess, if you want to be really rudimentary about it. And we would play like StarCraft, Warcraft 2, Doom, shit like that. And it was $7 a month, and you only got 5 hours. So when you were done with time, you would just not log off so you wouldn't be disconnected, I guess. That was fun. That was usually like the last Friday of every month. Go hard in the paint, playing Doom or some shit, or Saturday, whatever. Anyway, I say that to say that I've always been interested in online shit. And then moving forward, when I actually got, because I had my own phone line, I had to page all that shit, because in order to be on the internet, you needed a dial-up connection. There was no ISDN, there was no cable, there was no DSL, there was no fiber optic. It was basically a phone. If the phone rings, you get disconnected. So I needed my own phone line so I could have my own internet. So upon this, I learned about online games. They had things called MUDs, which were like multi-user dungeons, which were the precursors to MMORPGs. And I always found MMORPGs to be super interesting. Like the concept. Remember, this is back in the day where the idea of having multiple players in this world that you're all together, like cooperating or fighting, was always like it just felt, I don't know, interesting. I loved the concept, and I was a big proponent of these things. And there was one on AOL called Neverwinter, which I could never play because it was super expensive. And I'm like, bro, I'm a kid. I ain't got money like that. I'm not going to date myself, because then, I was in high school. I was like, nah, chill. There was money better spent than playing Neverwinter. But anyway, something like Meridian 69, played that for a minute. Ultima Online, played that for a hot second. EverQuest was my thing for like a year or two. It was this 3D world. It was just thousands of players. It was fucking, at the time, it was amazing. But looking back, it's very archaic and barbaric. And that's what brought the precursor to World of Warcraft and the Bob's Your Uncle. But I say that to say that I've always had an interest in online games. And I was also, back in the day, very much like Jake Allen. Jake Allen loves all wrestling, And back then, when I was a young man with the good hair, I enjoyed all wrestling. I didn't have access to like these weird, or rather, I didn't go to any of these weird Usenet groups or whatever like that, or forums or any of that shit, or newsletters. My information came from like spots like WrestleZone to get basic, spoilery news. We just be like, we'll get stuff like, there's someone expected to show up at Raw, and that's it. Like, we didn't know who, shit like that. So with that, there was no opposite forces or whatever planting seeds of, oh, you this guy doesn't know, The Rock doesn't know how to work, or none of that. I just like, yo, I love The Rock, I love Stone Cold. WCW was different because they had the cruiserweights. So the cruiserweights were amazing. Dean Malenko was fucking lighting shit on fire. Oh my god, Dean Malenko was the shit. The Iceman, son. Stanko Malenko, Dino Machino was the joint. And then ECW with their real music and the violence and the sick matches, and like, it was just next level shit and da 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 da. So anyway, that was me being a wrestling fan. So I loved all of it. ECW. Even like Japan back in the day, like I knew about like All Japan. I didn't have access to tapes, but I saw a couple of Misawa matches back, and like, this is fucking banana. They're trying to kill each other. This is like the real shit, and it was just the whole thing. I loved it. So with a love of computers and the internet and trying to, like, you know, whatever, want to always compete, like, because at the time also you have to remember there was something like WCW versus NWO, which was the first time I played that shit. My mind was blown. I actually wound up buying a Nintendo 64 off a friend of mine, Papo. I was like, yo, I'll give you like $75. He's like, cool. I wanted to give him like 65 at the end of the day, and he never pressed me because I was a lot bigger than him. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, I have my third-party controllers. I had WCW versus NWO, then WCW versus NWO Revenge, then WrestleMania 2000, then Virtual Pro Wrestling, the first one, then No Mercy. It's like, and the list goes on and on. And then later on, I had WWE Attitude, or WWF Attitude, and just loved it all. Here comes SmackDown versus Raw. Not SmackDown versus Raw. The first SmackDown game, whatever it was. I remember buying that and being like, it's different, it's faster. Didn't hate it though. It wasn't No Mercy, but it was still interesting. So I say that to say that that's where the love of wrestling came from too. And then on top of that, you add the piece of emulators. So I got into emulators in the mid 90s, and I came across something called Superfire Pro Wrestling X Premium. And I promise I'll get to the crux of OCW once again after this little short divergence. And Superfire Pro Wrestling X Premium was a 2D Super Nintendo game that was translated to English via people, like, you know, coding and hacking the ROM. And it was really good. Like, for Super Nintendo, it was good. Even for someone who enjoyed No Mercy playing this, I used to put in so many hours in this game because even though it was super simple, it had a pretty good creative suite. I wanted to like getting the different, because people could make packs or saves, and the saves would have, you know, like, they're like WCW guys, ECW guys, the whole enchilada. So I wound up learning how to hack saves so that I can make one massive save. Because back in the day, you have to remember, Super Nintendo, the wrestling games we had with Super Nintendo was something like, you know, WWE Superstars, WWE Raw, WWF Raw, and these were okay games, but they had like 8 guys, whereas Fire Pro out the box had like 50. So when you were done with everything, and I have it somewhere, I wish I could find it, but like I had it on a floppy disk back in the day, as a matter of fact, and I had the full WCW roster, I had the current WWF roster, I had the full ECW roster, and then I had the what the hell was it called back in the day? I think the AAA roster too, in my little save. And I used to just run. And the thing is, I didn't know about simming Fire Pro, so I used to play these matches like nonstop, like whoever. I would play like, you know, Tiger Mask or Chris Benoit before he was a psychopath, or, you know, I would do Dean Malenko versus Rob Van Dam versus The Rock. I do Undertaker versus Misawa versus freaking, what's this guy's name? Perry Saturn. I do all kinds of crazy shit. It was a great time. So when you had the emulators, there was a possibility to do net play. And I was like, oh shit. So I was actually able, with one of my friends, Andranik, if you will, now known as Zarian on the socials, we would play Super X Premium every now and again. It was like, oh, this is fucking cool. Little laggy, not perfect, but there was something there. I was like, just the idea of playing somebody else online felt good. So we put a pin on it. As you know, you get older and things change or whatever. Went to college, did my college thing, and then I don't know, something happened. Got a couple shitty jobs. I was like, just weird. Something was wrong, I guess. I don't know what was wrong, but something was wrong. But I needed a distraction, and I said, you know what? I want to do something. Don't know what it was though. And then I remember reading, I think it was EGM at the time. I think it was EGM or whatever. It was one of those magazines, and it was talking about how there was a wrestling game that was done by THQ or Ukes. Was it Ukes? I think it was Ukes. Yeah. And it was in Japan, and it was basically SmackDown versus Raw, but it had an online component. I was like, what the fuck is this? What is this? And it was showing, it showed the screenshot, showed players playing each other, but it was Japanese. So I was like, fuck. And then I went to try to see if I can get it, but then you needed a Japanese PlayStation, and I wound up getting I didn't have a Japanese PlayStation. I had a PlayStation 2, but I didn't have the Japanese thing, and I didn't have like a code, a crack for it and shit like that. Not a crack, but basically like to make your American PlayStation play Japanese games, and my net net adapter wasn't specified for Japan. And I was like, oh fuck, dream dead. Maybe not. A little bit later, learned that SmackDown vs. Raw is going to be the first wrestling game in the States to support online. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. This is it. This is it. Like, this is what we do. We build a world. We get people to play them. Get people to compete in fair play. Get people to compete fairly. And, they tell their own stories. And this is basically like EverQuest, but for wrestling people back in the day. So leading up to that, right, I had the idea in my head. I had the plan, but I was like, this is a lot of work, and I don't want to do it at all because it's a lot of work. Because if you know how my brain works, you know that I overthink everything, and I try to go for all the bases and try to cover all the angles and try to do people who work with me will know how my brain operates. I'll leave it at that. If you don't know, maybe you'll never know, whatever. So I said, okay, let me hold off. And I remember pitching the idea of it on IGN boards. And I was trying to, for the sake of this, I was trying to find my posting on IGN boards, but you can't find jack shit no more. I checked GameFAQs, can't find it. I remember I going to GameFAQs, IGN boards, and Xbox forum back in the day, and can't find it. I wish I could. If you could, please let me know. That'd be fun to look at, because I was very professional, hoity-toity. And I remember floating the idea at first to see if there was interest. And being the internet, basically people told me to kick rocks, pound sand, ugh. Who cares, nerd? All right, whatever. So then I remember I joined an EFED. And they had a basic website. It looked pretty okay. I don't remember if they had the domain name or if it was a GeoCity site. Honestly, I can't remember. I just remember it being red and, wait for it, Chrome. I was like, ooh, this looks cool. I do think the name was CWO, Cyber Wrestling Organization, I think. Or CW. It might have been CWW or CWI. I can't remember, to be honest with you. It's been so long. I just remember the red and the Chrome and the basic website and da-da-da-da. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is not like this. And I joined. I made a dude named Simon Rose. And Simon Rose was essentially like a British dude, but he was like a diesel British dude. I'm trying to think. Maybe if you cross Lex Luger with a little bit of melanin, some cornrows. And I remember he had the Regal jacket or Regal-esque jacket with a rose on the back. I remember Simon Rose. I'm trying to think what the finisher was. I think the finish was an F5. I don't remember specifically, but he was a big dude. And I tried to make, the moves that would make sense for a big dude, and, some housey shit, but not a lot of housey shit. A lot of stuff is more brawly, whatever. Anyway, long story short, I was super excited. I was like, oh, it's a character. I did a little role play, I wrote a thing about it, a little biography. And I was like, hey, man, because at that time, they didn't really have a roster, but they had names, and you click it and you would get a little thing. They would give you some basic info. So I was like, hey, I remember asking for a week before I debuted if they could put that on the site, and they just did not. So oh, that sucks. Oh. Anyway, so I remember my first match was against what the fuck is this guy's name? I don't remember the guy's name at all. But what I do remember is that he was based off a Star Trek dude. It wasn't Spock or Kirk or anything, but it was just like I don't know the name, but I remember the name of the move was the phase lock. That's all I remember, the phase lock. It was basically just your regular old bullshit sub back in the day, because back in the day you could like auto sub people and that was it. You know, Bob's your uncle, you're dead. I wasn't aware of this. I was just excited to enter the world of the CWO or the CWW, like, you know, making my way, brother. So we get this thing going, we have a match, and then the match wasn't recorded. So basically you just kind of tell them who won, who lost, shit like that, and that was it. Like, okay, cool. And that was it. So we did the match, and it's weird because back then I was actually trying to like not work a match, if you will, but trying to just like not be cheesy. Like, since I was a horse and the moves, some of my moves did like a shitload of damage, like I would fucking hoss him up real quick, then go for a cover, then like back up, you know, then give him some things. I'm not trying to dog him out. So as we're going, he starts like it's like I'm giving him I'm not dogging him out, and then as soon as he gets the opportunity, he's just dogging me out left and right. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that's what that is. Cool. And within like, I don't know, fucking like 5-6 minutes or whatever, we're both like, there was no rule on like damage. It was just like whatever. So I was like yellow, orange or some shit like that, and he was like double red or whatever the hell he was. I don't remember. I just know that like, since I was hossing the shit out of him, his damage was like, he was fucked, and he just slapped on the finisher mad quick, you know, whatever. First tapped me out. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then he was popping shit, and I was like, oh, that's weird. Okay. I mean, sure, I guess that's like, I thought, but it wasn't in character. It was just like being a dick. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's fucking whack. Sure. So anyway, I'm like, hey, can we like get a rematch or something, like work a program? No response. So I tell the owners, I'm like, is it all right if I get a rematch with this guy down the line? And they're like, whatever. I'm like, okay. So then I'm writing on their little board now, because my bio thing never went up, but you can actually do stuff on the boards. Like, there's like this weird like message posty kind of thing, almost like a live journal type of thing. I'm kind of like doing an angle by myself. I'm like, you may have gotten me at fucking whatever the show was. The show name, I don't remember the show name. It was blood loss or some shit like Monday Night Blood Loss or whatever the fuck it was called, or whatever. I'm like, you may have gotten me whatever with the phase lock, but you know, every rose has its thorns, brother, and I'll see you fucking in 2 weeks at fucking next pay-per-view. It wasn't a pay-per-view, it was just whatever fucking the name of the show was. So this time we fight again, and I'm trying to do like within the first minute, I'm like, all right, he's not. So I said, fuck it. Hoss, F5 dead. 3 minutes. Fucking, oh, what are you doing? Like, hello, you know, the guy like lost his fucking mind. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you want? And so he's all pissed off. He's like, whatever. So then we submitted the results, and he bitched out, and then I actually got talked to by somebody. Someone was like, oh, you shouldn't play like that. I'm like, play like what? Like, did you like? There's no video. So there's no video. There's nobody. This basically just be like, you kind of just tell them who won, and that was it. That was the result. That was it. So I'm like, I'm explaining. I'm like, hey, so the first time, whatever, and this, and it's like whatever. So I said, you know, then the guy was like, you know, if you don't, you know, he's like, if you don't want to be here, I'm like, it's a good point. I don't. Peaced out. So that was there. I left, and I was like, okay, you know what? Knowing what I know, this was dumb. Let's see if we can improve the formula. So at this point, with the jump off that is SmackDown versus Raw, there's a couple of places. Not like huge, but there's a few places here and there. And I noticed that none of them really have a domain name. They're all just kind of have like Angel Fire / whatever, GOC / whatever, you know, whatever. It's not, no one, it's nothing like, you know, www. fucking WC.W.com, nothing. It's just everybody has these weird things. So I said, first of all, how do I do this? And my friend Fear Style was like, yeah, you need a domain name. I was like, what's that? He's like, when you go www, I'm like, yes. He's like, that's the thing that you call it. So what do you want to call it? And I'm like, I'll get back to you. And to Zarian. Me and Zarian, being wrestling marks and fans that we used to watch Raw religiously every Monday for like, I don't know, maybe 5 to 6 years. It was quite a long time. Religiously, always get on the phone and watch the Raw and just talk shit. It's a fun time. So we workshopped a little bit. And his trivia is he claims that he came up with the name, and I claim he did not, but that's neither here nor there. To this day, 20 years later, he always says that he came up with the name, and I'm like, you did not. I don't know. I'll give him the bone. Who the fuck knows? Anyway, long story short, there was a couple of I remember wanting to make sure that I had the Fed because I'm pretty sure OCW was actually taken. So I was like, let me put Fed for Federation, and then that's how we got the domain name. So the domain name was we had that ready, and the idea was hopefully that this doesn't get stolen and life gets shitty. I had to stop for a second because I have a neighbor who eats paint chips and decided to drag furniture, and it was very loud and it threw me off. Where was I? Oh yes, I was saying. So I had to get an idea of what specifically I wanted, and I had a sit-down session with Dirty Dan and Fear Style. And the idea is, as being an MMO nerd that I was, or an MMO enjoyer, I wanted to make the world feel accessible, to feel real. So how do you do that? You provide payouts. So that was the one thing that we had when we first started with the first iteration of OCW. That was blue and white that you can find on Wayback Machine. That was to include payouts. So you would have monthly automatic payouts based on your salary, and you would also have payouts based on your matches. And that was a fun little thing. It was coded rather well, and you were basically able to, with those payouts and your contract, you would be able to purchase things on the forum. Back then we had a more, I don't know, forums were simpler back then, so you can do cool things like change the font style and colors of your names and whatever, stuff like that, titles. And then you would also buy augmentations that would carry over into games as well, into the game, like pyro, shit like that. We also had stuff where you could actively work against other players. Like you had like a revenge card that you can buy, and if you buy the revenge card, then you can give them a match, and they would have to do the match against whoever the hell you wanted. Shit like that. We had a fully featured store. It was pretty nice back in the day. I wish I had a screenshot of it, whatever. Some of the stuff I have some of the icons, but not everything. And then we had awards, like we have the awards now, but we also had awards back then, and we had a plethora of them for all kinds of different things, and da-da-da-da. Anyway, that was the first iteration. So the idea was to make a living, breathing world. So once again, I go back to the IGN boards, and I say, hey, if you're looking for a fun and fair place to compete at, no cheesers, why don't you try OCWFED? And people were like, lol, no. And then I said, .com. Like, wait, what? Got a fucking website? What? And they would go to the website. You saw what it is. Nothing super special, but the back end was whatever. So the funny thing was that I had a dude named Paco from IGN Boards who actually was kind of down on day one and was impressed or whatever. And that's how that started. We basically started from like 5 people, and we had little systems, our payouts, our pay-per-views, not pay-per-views, our whatever. We didn't have a show per se yet. We didn't have a name of a show. Riot wasn't named. We didn't do anything yet. So in the interim, I wish I knew I think the first show was Massacre, as a matter of fact. I think it was Monday Night Massacre. I'm pretty sure. There's an artwork for it. We had like 2 weird placeholder names. I do remember Massacre was one of them. I remember how the font looked. It was the blood font. That was funny. That was popular at the time. But because there was one thing I always wanted, though, and this is one of the paramounts of OCW back in the day was, and it was more so in the second year than the first year because the first year technology wasn't where it needed to be. I wanted matches to be recorded. That was I was like a very, like, if you could record a match, then I wanted it recorded. So with SmackDown versus Raw, you were only allowed 2 players, period. So if neither could record, you were not getting that match recorded. So what people would do is they would do their match, and then if they couldn't record, then they would basically kind of transcribe what their match was. So a show would typically be like, we have the Monday Night Massacre, we have maybe 3 matches, and maybe somebody records, maybe not. And if they record on the webcam, and it looks like shit. But back then, 340p on like a 800 by 600 monitor, it's not that bad. It's okay. You can make it out what's happening, even if it's at 15 frames a second. You can kind of make it out anyway. And I remember very vividly that PS2 was region locked. So like if we had European players, they couldn't play US players. So we had a couple Europeans, namely Steven Johansson and Danny Williams eventually. And then we had a couple US players, not many. And the shows would be transcribed. So it's me like giving the rundown of the show, and then the people involved, if they have a match and they can't record, they're basically like saying, they're doing like a traditional text-based match kind of, but they're basically going from what happened in their actual match. So that was kind of interesting. It was very much like a condensed form of the traditional EFED at the time. And I was like, hey, this is not bad. This is okay. So, we're moving along. The people that kind of were like, lol, this is stupid, they started joining and be like, oh shit, like, they kind of know what they're doing. And back then, that was still version 1. I had got version 1 of V Bulletin via the high seas because at the time they wanted $149, and I only had $9, I guess. Did not have a lot of money for that kind of shit. So I sailed the high seas, or rather Sphere Style sailed the high seas, and we got that going. And then when it comes to hosting, again, not knowing anything about anything, I wound up getting private hosting from like a dude from France. That's it. I had a website. I mean, I had like a shitty maybe Windows or Linux server, and I installed the thing on it. I had actually FearStyle installed it. Actually, no, my bad. FearStyle did the front end, the graphical work. Dirty Dan actually did the back end stuff. That was always what he was good at, back end. Pause, no diddy. He's actually a software engineer now, self-taught, which is hilarious. But I digress. He did all the back end stuff. He actually did the installation, and then FearStyle did all the artwork and any other miscellaneous coding shit that was in his wheelhouse. But he did the pre stuff. So that gets installed. We're on the French site, and we're doing all right. We're cooking. We're doing okay. And then the first roadblock hits. SmackDown vs. Raw comes out. It's not bad, but it's one-on-one. You really can't do anything other than one-on-one. That's it. It's like, oh. So we have our small roster. We're doing stuff. We're doing shows. And then I do believe, matter of fact, we can find this on the forums, as a matter of fact. Let's see where we can look this up at. See if I can find the first Riot show. It looks like the first Riot taping was... Actually, holy shit. Looks like the first Riot taping, if this is going to pop up on me. Yeah, it is. The first Riot taping is... It says the funny thing is this is the first anniversary special. Oh, it's 2005. There we go. Yeah, no, 2004. So basically, Riot doesn't come out until roughly a year after OCWFED. So October 5th, 2020. October 5th, 2005 is when we have our first Riot. So that first year, all we had was SmackDown versus Raw, and sometimes webcams. And what happened is somewhere in the middle of 2004, we opted to try using I'll just pull this up. I'll find the date on this. WrestleMania 21 for the Xbox. And actually the way the timing on that's a little bit off, because that came out April 20th, 2005. Okay? So if OCW came about in 2004, SmackDown versus Raw. Let me see. Yeah, SmackDown versus Raw dropped November 2nd, 2004. So basically, OCW launched in 2004 in October, and we kind of built our stuff up, and then we were ready a month later at November 2nd for SmackDown versus Raw, and that's when we had our first couple of shows, Massacre, whatever, and we were just kind of texting our way along with the text stuff. And then in April of 2005, a couple months later, that's when WrestleMania 21 comes out. So it's on Xbox. So the idea is Xbox is a stronger platform at the time, hardware wise, better internet, and Europeans will be able to play against Americans because the Xboxes shouldn't be region locked. They were, so that was a problem. So what wound up happening is we tried WrestleMania 21 with our roster, our fledgling roster, and it was a sheer catastrophe. I want to say that if we started using WrestleMania 21 in April, by maybe July, we said, this ain't gonna work, Hoot. This ain't gonna work. That's how bad that was. So we went back to SmackDown vs. Raw, and any match that could be recorded was done with a camcorder, and any match that basically couldn't be done, like if we built like a Euro versus the United States, they basically did a 1-1, and then we flipped the coin to figure out the rubber match if there was a rubber match. So I remember Nate Ortiz had a feud with KSM, and it was for a title. So the first one we gave to KSM, I think. And then we wrote the second one, and Nate won it. I don't think there was a third. I don't remember. But yeah, he wound up being the first whatever champion or some shit like that. And I was like, okay, whatever. And the funny thing is, I found Nate and RD Money, kind of fast forward is, and to keep you in the loop of the timeline of these events. So the game drops in November of 2004, SmackDown vs. Raw, the first one. There's a couple sites that start popping up. No one really has domains. I think maybe another person does eventually in December. I ran to a site named XWA, which within maybe a month or two of being alive, they were shutting down. You have to remember, back in the day, like, another reason why OCW still lasts this long is because sheer force of will. Back then, the funny thing is, back then the PvP was actually the forefront. Like, there was a lot of players or clans that did PvP, but no one ever had a website. And if they did, it was something weird, like I said before. So the few people that did have something, they were around, but they didn't stick around. So I remember one specifically, XWA, and I ran into them because I used to like scout around for talent and shit. Like, yo, we need people, bro. We need good people, not shitbags. So I remember running into RD Money and Nate Ortiz, and the only reason that I knew about them was because their matches weren't being recorded, but they had the wherewithal to actually have like photos of their characters. Like, oh shit, these look kind of cool. So whatever. And then I wound up, XWA was folding, so I said, hey, to the XWA people, and I wish I still had. We have the artwork for it, but we don't have the actual show anywhere. God, sadly, because we'll bring that back in a second. So what happened is I told XWA, I'm like, look, y'all folding. If you want, I'll do a show for y'all. It's your people. Do a show for y'all, but just make sure you got RD Money and Nate Ortiz on that show. They're like, yeah, cool, no problem. So their last show was on OCW. I put it on OCWFED.com, and it was XWA Last Stand. And they had all their guys. They did their thing. They said thank you very much, and they moved on with their lives. I'm like, no problem. And I wound up keeping Nate and RD Money. And those guys turned out to wind up being legends. And Nate, Nate's Nate, the GT GOAT. So that's whatever. So to bring it back, and this is early OCW. Maybe we'll just do early OCW and call it a day. Anyway, so with that, what wound up happening is, like I said, we had a French server, private, I guess. So I don't remember the specific day, But I do remember we went back to SmackDown versus Raw after WrestleMania 21 was complete dog shit and did not work and wound up killing a lot of the roster. Like, we lost a chunk of people because of it. And we went back to SmackDown versus Raw. Stuff was doing, we were like building back up. And then I want to say that, matter of fact, let me see if I could find it on, the Riot map, because that'll be the best indication. Because at some point before the SmackDown versus Raw 2006, which wound up being our like super boom period, the site got hacked by the French, and we lost everything. Like, everything was gone. All the forum stuff was kiboshed, and that was in 2005, and that was like a huge deal. So at that point, I ran to a man named Gregory Kale in the summer of 2005, and he said, "Hey, if you can get me a copy of V Bulletin, whatever, I can put it up for you and get that shit going for you." So this time I changed I actually got a regular domain, a good domain, quality-ish kind of, from a reputable source, but I still sailed the high seas for VB back then as well. That was version 2. We're on version 2 now, which is Black and Yellow, which a lot of people remember, but most don't. Black and Yellow was probably one of our definitive versions. We had a bunch of modules, like all kinds of crazy shit, but building up to that, we had to start over. So we started over. Hi, we're taking a quick pause for the cause to add some extra additional context to this podcast. As a matter of fact, we'll probably be taking a few of these because listening back to certain pieces, I don't think I gave enough grace and relevance to certain parts of the story, given when it was recorded previously. It was probably late, so my brain was mush to begin with. But someone like Gregory Kale, who was here from 2005 to 2007, was incredibly instrumental in most of the OCW web development after Fierce Style and Dirty Dan. As such, he was instrumental in version 2 by basically anchoring modules because he understood HTML. So to give you an example, we had a lot of different ideas, or rather I had a bunch of ideas, like all kinds of things: tournament modes, game battle leaderboards, interactive rosters. This is even back in the day. Other modules, or OCW's Most Wanted, the power rankings, stuff like that, the power, half hour, etc. And what he would do is he would take my insanity and he was able to anchor it. So when we had version 2, if I had an idea, I would flesh it out, I would provide the HTML, then he would anchor it to the site so it would look like it's part of the site, versus like you click on it, it's like a completely different looking website or whatever. He was able to kind of do the CMS thing, the module thing that we have now, but he was able to do that back then. So it was incredibly helpful, and it helped make the site more interactive to make it feel more alive. Despite most of these ideas usually tanked because it was just me and I can't do everything myself, and when I would delegate they would fail, but at least you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So that had to be said. In addition, Gregory Kale was also the very first general manager, and he was the general manager for Riot, and he provided the artwork for Riot. Now, what I don't remember specifically is if Riot was his idea or my idea, the naming rights. I want to say it could have been him, but I think what it was is we were coming up with names that wanted to start down with the letter R. Obviously, you can't use Raw, and I think Riot was basically the easiest one to come across. I think I came up with the name, and then he did the artwork because I was not able to do artwork. But at this point, we'll just keep it as a toss-up because, honestly, I don't remember. I came up with a lot of ideas, but I don't remember. It's a long time ago. But again, I can't understate the importance of. There's a few people that need a lot of specific grace. One, like I said, Gregory Carroll's one of them. Ron, aka the Air, which hopefully I don't know if we touched on version 4 later on, but maybe we can go back to it. But this is a long podcast, by the way, just so you know. But Ron was also instrumental in version 4 and keeping us afloat in the weird time, that weird like limbo area after like 2010. So 2009 was a very strange time, and then 2010 got weird to the Ambition era. But yeah, a special shout out to Ron. We'll talk about Ron later on, and then also Paul Pugh, again, instrumental in the resurgence of OCW, because it's not touched upon in the podcast, and we'll go back to it. But there was basically, I was done, and it was K Sarah. So we'll talk about that later on. But again, just to reiterate, endless grace to Gregory Kale for the version 2 of OCW, the anchoring and all that setup, and parts of version 3. I think he was gone by that time. I can't really remember, but he was very instrumental in the early phases of OCW with a lot of creative input. And again, shout out to Fear Style and a Dirty Dan. So let's go back to where we was after these commercial messages, which is just me like a segue that's shitty. I'm sorry. And that led to the first episode of Riot in 2005 of October 5th. So basically the new game dropped, SmackDown versus Raw, and we was off to the races. Matter of fact, let me just double check the date on that. Yeah, SmackDown versus Raw dropped. Yes, it dropped November 11th, 2005. So we still had a little bit of regular SmackDown versus Raw until November 11th of 2005, in which we kicked into the new generation. So the funny thing about this one is that with the new version of the site and SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, we wound up just like a flood of people. When I tell you that from November 11th, when the game came out, till about probably August of September of 2006 rather. So almost a year later, we were doing 4 shows a week with 2 brands. And that was only because the sheer influx of people. So you have to understand now that PS2 is still region locked, but we had like 2 European players. And I ran to another site named EWA. EWA was basically a European wrestling contingent. And essentially, they just had a shitload of euros, but they were like kind of going to shutter it because they just, the people in charge didn't want to like do it anymore. So they had like maybe 8-9 people. They had Kareem the Great One, Lochi, Leon Hart, CJ Hoppus, The Air, I think Chris Ryder. They had a shitload of people. And Vega, more specifically, and among others, and I can't remember the rest, but there was a lot. Maybe I'm gonna say off rip about maybe 10-12 people. Probably lost, maybe not, whatever, 10-12 people. And we had on the OCW side maybe 4 euros. 2 of them was Danny Williams and Johansson again, which were just kind of feuding with each other nonstop. Johansson was basically a discount Stone Cold, and Danny Williams was just, I don't really know how to describe Danny Williams. I don't have nothing negative. I just don't know how to describe him as a wrestler. Just, I guess a shitbag was the gimmick. He was the guy that notoriously said, let me break FPR so I can be more of a heel. And I was like, that's stupid. Speaking of FPR, quick sidebar, and I know I'm a little all over the place because fuck it, we're celebrating 20 years. Let me enjoy this, all right? Let me have my moment, okay? You son of a bitch. Yeah, that's the problem. Sorry, you don't like it, too bad. FPR was actually the very first thing that I tackled when the game launched. The first game launched, 2000 SmackDown vs. Raw, when that one dropped. And that was basically from my time at CWO. And that was basically me saying, okay, I would like fight people and then say, okay, this doesn't feel right, so we're not doing it. And then as people started recording matches with actual capture hardware, because here's the other funny thing. The benefit of the new game, 2006 SmackDown, was that more people had like dazzles and they were able to record. So what they would do is we had what's called cam ninjas. So if we had a roster of, let's say, I don't know, I'm going to wing it, but back then, let's say we had, because the thing is, 2006 started like a snowball. So let's say when we first started in 06, when the SmackDown vs. Raw 06 thing first started, let's say we had 60 people just off rip. Maybe 10 of those people could record. So what would they do is what they would do is they would make a call that was in all black, like a cam. It was basically a cam ninja, and they would record, but they would be like on the side at the thing. They would basically position themselves so that they can get the most of the screen as possible, but they wouldn't be in the way. And the thing is, this game, the targeting was really good back in the day, so you didn't have to do the auto targeting shit. So no one ever targeted the cam ninja ever, like maybe rarely once or twice. So that's how the match was done. Like you would have one guy will come, he would record, and you two schmeckles would do your match, and they would record for you. And that happened for quite years. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna say from 06 to about maybe 10. That was the norm. We had people that will record your shit for you because you were a fucking bum. So I digress. Where was I? Yes. So FPR. So FPR was basically the first initiation of it was, and I wish I had it. I don't have it anymore. I have one from like 09, but it's not as Bible-tastic as the original FPR. The original FPR was massive, like a fucking D&D rule book. And that was basically my experiences, and then watching matches and saying, okay, this is bullshit, that's bullshit. Like spamming finisher thing was bullshit. Certain moves that would link to instantly hit a finish, like shit like that. So I had to be monitoring that left, right, and center statistics. So that was the first one. So if anyone wants to tell you differently about FPR, they're full of shit and they're lying. So they need to not do that. Just to cover those bases. I remember sitting down doing that shit with Gregory Kale at one point. The first iteration was me and Paco. And then he shortly fucked off later. And then we kept that kind of damaged version for a while. And then at one point it was me and Ortiz doing it, trying to figure out what's what. And then that lasted for a while. And then FPR, progressed or changed depending on whatever. And then we also had a notoriously shitty FPR, which favored super heavyweights because certain people wanted to push their own narrative. But I'll leave that for another day. Just saying. Rome wasn't built in a day. So back to the action. So we have the European people. EWA joins OCW, and they beat the ever-loving fuck out of the OCW European division, which was hilarious in retrospect. There's a whole little sidebar about the EWA stuff. Not gonna get into it, but it was funny because they had I used to call it EU style, but for the most part it was just kind of like hyper thirsty. Like they used to do this spin maneuver. Basically, they would hit you and then spin behind you and then do a back move like nonstop. It was basically like fucking Cirque du Soleil. It was or they would do this thing where they kind of like flip behind you as well. So they would spin or flip behind you and then do a back grapple like nonstop. It was fun times. So I digress. So anyway, where was I? Like we're probably gonna wrap up soon because there's like a lot. Just trying to think of like what the fuck, like to get to where to the present. It's not gonna happen. But so yeah. So within this time, we've had, like I said, it got so big that we wound up having 4 shows a week, and it was 4 different GMs, and we had, I think it was Crisis, Animosity, Turmoil, and Riot. And Crisis and Animosity are kind of missing in action. I don't know if they're gone forever. They might be. There was like 100 episodes. I remember looking at it. I was like, oh boy, because my old host fucking shit canned them because can't have nothing nice. What are you gonna do? But yeah. That's unfortunate because that happened like a couple years ago, like maybe 2001 or some shit, a little bit after the pandemic, and it was like, fuck. I remember feverishly trying to back up the .net stuff, and then I guess I neglected the CCW stuff. I'll see if I can ever find it, but I don't fucking know. It's just one of those things, man, that you just it's still thinking about. It still fucking chaps my ass. But what are you gonna do? Anyway, I digress. So we had these amount of shows. We had like 4 shows a week, 4 different GMs, a shitload of talent. We had CCW, which had 2 shows. We LCW had 2 shows, and then eventually they would fight at I think it was called Riot versus it was called CCW versus OCW. That was a nice little event. And then the inevitable happens yet again. So due to our burgeoning popularity, there's outside forces that I guess were not happy with our success. And long story short, within a year and change of version 2, which was the shit, we get dimed out and version 2 gets shut down. So that was fun. So once again, scrambling to put up a forum, use Simple Machine forums, and I remember using Simple Machine forums. And it was basically first simple. At one point, here's the part that I left out. So when CCW came into creation, that was another idea that I had. I was like, oh man, we should, have a second brand, and one could feed into the other, like CCW could feed into OCW, and again, building the world and delegating to people who can't be trusted. So that was the idea. So when V2 got off the ground and then CCW came, I said, to complete the gimmick, why don't CCW have its own forum? So we created a forum on Simple Machines for CCW, and they had their own thing, their own cars, everything was on the CCW forum. So that was, that was his own immersive experience, because you have two completely different forums and it's like two completely different brands. Boom. So once version 2 got dimed out by some hater ass motherfucker, I had to consolidate everything into fucking the Simple Machine form that we have for CCW. So that became the OCW and CCW thing. And I remember it being all white and the styles being off. So fucking posting stuff was weird. And I was like, oh God, I hate this forum so much. So we were on that for a little while. And at this point I said, I fucking need to buy this software, because like this can't happen again. And I don't remember if it was me. I know Ron bought the Air. He wound up buying version 4. Version 3, I think I put up the capital for it. I'm pretty sure I bought it combining my stuff, my money, and then the trying to fundraise. I'm pretty sure that's how that one was done back then. Fairly certain. So we get OCW version 3. This one has all the bells and whistles, more or less, of version 2, with a bunch more functionality for the Xbox stuff. We had Xbox related rosters that you were able to pull up Xbox information while fighting, on your opponent. The roster was super like interactive. We had arcades, which were fucking whatever. We had show betting, which was a really popular. You could bet on tournaments and shows to get your money up. We had the store. We had awards. We had a bunch of stuff. And we would probably still be on that today, even though it's so many years later, if like our host wasn't asked, because the performance of version 3 on our forum on our platform was bad. Like that shit was just, it was slow. It would time out a lot. It was real. If you thought 4 was bad, this was way worse. So that was the thing. But yeah, we had version 3. Things were popping off. We were doing good. It was fun and dandy. We're moving into, as I said, because remember I said Xbox, right? So SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 was on PlayStation and it was popping, but then with the Xbox, I believe 360, if I'm not mistaken, let me just double check on that. It's for 2007. Because I don't remember. I want to know, like, this is where I'm gonna need somebody to like help me, because I'm fairly certain that 2007 was when we all made the jump from PS2 to Xbox. I think everybody as a whole did that because there was a region lock. So I'm like, look, 360, there's no way on fucking planet Earth that 360 is gonna have the region lock that PlayStation has, and it didn't. That's why version 3 was fully integrated with Xbox because of that. And remember, 360 was fucking great back in the day. Like, Xbox was actually less shitty and more consumer friendly. So Xbox, regular Xbox and 360 were like the shit, gold standard, probably the best, despite the red rings, which was awful. But so we're now in like 2000. We're like in early 2006, and we're getting SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. So we lose a lot of the creative functions of SmackDown vs. Raw 06. Like, Majin used to do t-shirts. You can't do these online anymore. So we had like regular looking Like the cars themselves didn't look great, but the game itself was all the best parts of '06. Faster performance, faster loading. You don't have to rush into a lobby with your friends, because back then the game worked, but see, now these games don't work, but back then they worked. It's just that you were stuck. Like if you were like me, you, and two other people gonna fight, we gotta run in like, oh, I'm in lobby 17. You gotta run 17. If not, some pendejo shows up like, hey, can we play? Like, no, go away. I don't know you. But I digress. So anyway, we got the new game. People are recording. Euros can play United States. That's where we had the notorious Kareem versus Kareem the Great One versus RD Money live on Justin.tv. 40 to 60 to 80 people. I'm just going to keep bringing the number up. 80 people watching, cheering. It was like a football game, or rather soccer if you're European. We got 40 for fucking RD Money. Got 40 for Kareem. Yeah, it was great. Fun time. Interactive as hell. I'm like, the system works. And these times are not without their challenges, because again, remember, the site got hacked, and then at one point there was the infamous mutiny. I don't know the date on the mutiny. I don't have it in front of me. But if you don't know, back in the day, we had a thing called AIM, AOL Instant Messenger, and a bunch of people that were on the site. Apparently, we had a pay-per-view coming up, and they were all planning to, not all of them, but they were planning to like fuck on me. They were planning to like either no. I don't know what they were. I don't know if the plan was to no show or whatever it was. And a few people have seen this documentation. But yeah, and long story short, RD Money dimed them out. People were talking tough. I showed up. They stopped talking tough. All these threats went away when presented with logic, because people were saying that they weren't getting opportunities, this, that, and the third. So everybody who had a complaint, I spoke to them and I said, here are the examples of why you're wrong. And they're like, oh. So basically, retards being, I shouldn't say retards, but yeah, retards being retarded. What the fuck you want? Fuck you. It's 2004. Say what I want. Being fucking stupid. So that gets quelled. That was funny. And that also gave me a lot more respect for RD Money and Nate Ortiz, because Nate Ortiz was there too. These people were like, those folks were working against me for some strange fucking reason, thinking they could do better when they couldn't, and they didn't, because people basically wanted to present it with the options of fucking off or getting together, and most people fucked off, and it was fine because we were able to, circumvent their stupidity. So it's just funny to look back in hindsight, because there's always something. So we flash forward a little bit, and then we have V3. We find that doing 4 shows a week is ridiculous and not sustainable from a fucking standpoint. In addition to 2006-07 rather, losing a lot of players because not everyone made the jump to Xbox 360. Some people like just didn't have it or whatever, which is, it's fine. But we still had a solid roster, a shitload of people, and a lot of good handlers. So it wasn't really a bad thing. It was kind of culling wheat, if you will, culling the fat. And then now we're presented with another issue. So with version, I think it's version 3. It could be version. I'm pretty sure it's version 3. I'm gonna say it's version 3. It was done a certain way, and it's done a certain style, done a certain color, like a basic a template from whatever. So it's a look. So you can get these and customize them as you see fit. So there's somebody who shows up. I don't have a date, but this is more or less when V3 is kind of up and running and we're kind of running smooth. This guy was around during WrestleMania 21. His name was KSM at the time. And essentially what happened with him was he kind of flaked, and it was what it was. So randomly, I get a message from somebody saying, hey, would you be interested in having me, I want to come back, but I want to be an admin on the site. And I'm like, lol, no, like that doesn't make any sense. Like this guy was here for a little while, really didn't do anything, had a couple angles, nothing crazy. As a matter of fact, a lot of work that was done by me or Nate. Like, like if you like, I remember making a faction. What the hell was the faction thing? I have the song on my iPod still. I think it was called NGX, as a matter of fact, Next Generation Extreme. Anyway, made a faction with Sideshow the Clown, I think KSM, Recon, and somebody else. I think there was a faction or whatever, and made them a song and and no one really did anything with it. So I'm like, I'm not gonna waste time. So this guy comes back, is like the guy who wasted time was like, hey, can I be an admin? I'm like, no. Okay. And then fast forward a couple weeks or months, I can't remember, and I don't know how, but I come across a site. So we have OCWFED.net, and this one is GCWFED.net. I'm like, that's weird. That's very weird. That's okay. And then I look at the logos, and it's very similar to the OCW logo. And then I look at the forum schema, and it's very similar to the forum schema. Like if OCW has the daily suplex, they have the daily body slam. I'm not even joking. The daily body slam. If we have like the boiler room in the basement, they have like the boiler and the cellar, like shit like that. Like, oh, this is weird. This is very weird. If I'm JCS or Jason or whatever, this dude's Freddy. I'm like, okay. So I see this and I'm like, nice site you got here, buddy. Banned instantly. Oh, okay. That's fine. So then to add salt on the proverbial wounds in the nature of betrayal and everything, I had one or two dudes. I think it was just one dude. Actually, it was two, because I remember Johansson and Danny at one point, they jumped ship. So they jumped ship and they joined that spot. I'm like, okay, cool. The irony being to jump ship, talk nonsense, and then do absolutely nothing, which is weird, but that's the nature of these things, I suppose. And if you know me, I'm very big on loyalty. So when people do shit like that, I'm like, oh, word, bro, word. You want to do that shit? I got you, son. So, and again, this is just fucking me retrospecting, because I don't know what the fuck. It's been a long time. This is all dumb, but it's funny to me. So why not just like whatever, right? Have a good old time, enjoy yourself. And I remember one dude, I forgot his name. It was like Incredible something. That dude left, and the thing is, he didn't leave like he was fine. There was nothing like whatever about him, like nothing. I remember he was a champion, I think, at the time, international, I think. I'm not sure. And he just left, like he just not even like, he just kind of like flaked. Like, that's weird. And then I'll never forget, I think there was a YouTube video or whatever. And the funny thing is, I was just more like, okay, this is weird. But that dude is the guy that kind of lit the fire under my ass, like, word, because he did a video, I think, on YouTube. And it was like this skinny little Yakubian, skinny little cack with like a shitty scraggly beard. Like, what, you know how someone has like a beard that's like patchy, so you're like missing a hole. You have like a hole in it, and it looks like it's like a rat's nest or whatever. And I'm not even trying to be a dick to be like, oh, whatever, because victory and whatever. But that's what it looked like. It was like a skinny dude and a fucking mattress behind him with no sheet. Like a fucking looks like he likes chew and dip and all that shit like that. And he was in his fucking. I remember what he sounded like. 'Cause he sounded like the typical like he had like a down south twang or some shit or whatever. I'll never forget the dude said like, oh, and then he said OCW suck harder, and he was doing like the thing, like I guess the head thing. I was like, number one, who's this motherfucker? Number two, how dare you? And number three, oh, word, son, I got you, son. So that kind of shit like lit. I was like, word. So I'm trying to remember what specifically after that, because I think even after that happened, I was still like, you know what? Fuck this guy, but I'm still going to be civil. And I think what the kicker is that in V3, we had like because here's the thing that like it's hard to contextualize, but back then there was like a lot, like there was always at least 2 to 5 like every week or whatever, people trying to join, like, hey, like a lot, like it was crazy because the barrier to entry was super low to begin with, but still. So it got so bad that what I did is that on V3 form we had like I don't know how it was specifically done, but the way Ron set it up was you didn't have to make an account, but there was a part of the form where you could kind of like ask to join, and you can interact without really having to. Actually, you had to make an account, but it was like a weird temporary type of thing or whatever. However it was set up, basically, it was kind of like you can come in and basically do what you have to do, and then someone will look it over and whatever. It was different than how we have it now, slightly. So objectively, the problem with this is that anybody could just, without really doing much, show up and just pop off and be like, fuck you, fuck your moms, fuck you, play that shit. And I wonder if you could find these on the forum. I'm not sure, because I don't know. I don't know if that was in. I want to say it was V3, but it could also have been V2, because these times kind of blend together. So if it's on V2, you really won't see it, because that's actually no longer available. But anyway, long story short, I make another attempt at trying to be civil and get blocked again. I'm like, all right, bet. And then the kicker is, people from there come to OCW to talk shit. So y'all don't know, back then, you don't do that, because if it's not me, because I was real bad back then, we got people like Versus. We had people like Cage. Like these people, like, you're not gonna talk shit. It's gonna be very, very not good for you. So that would just be a thing, nonstop, fucking whatever. And I remember calling the motherfucker Xerox, because it was basically a carbon copy of OCW. And I'll get to the rest of the story, but long story short, for a couple months, they lasted about a year and change, or maybe less. I'm not sure. Jacob Trance would actually know about that, to be honest with you, or Paul Pugh, because those guys came from there, and I'll get back to that in a little while. So they had their thing, and the benefit of them was they didn't really do anything right, but the few things they did do that were okay, they motivated me to be better. So I'm like, word, you think you're gonna fucking come? You're gonna think you're gonna fucking come in here and try to fucking, like, nah, bro. So, competition, spurs, whatever. So we started putting it hard in the paint. And the problem with them was that their owner was very inconsistent. You could ask people like Jacob Trance about that, because he was banned most of the time over there for talking shit or whatever the fuck. But yeah, the problem with them is like, they would always run into problems. Like, their site would go down because their guy didn't pay for it. That guy, their owner would ask for money for the site and then not pay the bills, and the site would go down. It got to the point that like RD being RD, because RD would go over there not to stir up shit, but try to be like friendly and whatever. Their site went down, and they're like, yo, fuck Sensation. He fucking sent RD money to hack. And it's like, bro, RD money can't even plug in the toaster. How the fuck is he gonna hack, bro? Like, what are you talking about? Shut up. So, and I remember, like, every time they had a problem, someone would show up and be like, they would show up here, and I would, like, help them. I'm like, yo, look, I don't know what's happening with y'all, but if you need something, y'all could come here, and I don't fucking know what to tell you. That's all I got. Like literally, like, every couple of weeks, something goes wrong over there. They get disconnected. They get this site goes away. And, like, it's weird, because I've had this conversation with other people before. I always find it funny, the bare minimum people can take and just be content with for years. So, like, it happens now. Like, I'll see some other places, and I'm like, nothing's being done, nothing's happening, this is all bullshit. Why are people even bothering to waste their time to begin with? But hey, some people will just take shit and like it, and that's not on me, that's not on them, that's just human nature. I don't know what to tell you about that shit. So anyway, I digress. So with that, and that was a GCW Xerox server. That's why I always called them Xerox. That's why I mentioned them by Xerox, because it was literally even the funny thing about it is, like, if our site was like green or teal or whatever the fuck, theirs was like teal and green. Like, this, like, just everything was copied over, just a different name, like legally distinct. Like, if you go to China or some shit and they take your shit, stuff like that. It was so, like, that's why I always say often often imitated, never duplicated too, because people would try to do that, and it wasn't even that. After that, there's other people, down the line to do that shit too, or did that shit, or tried to do that shit. And it's like, just cut it out, stop it. And what used to make me, like, laugh was the incessant rage that would happen once they were presented with the concept that they are basically a very bad duplication, a copy. It's like, no, we're not. I'm like, if we have Riot, you have fucking Rampage or Upheaval. Like, stop it. You're not, if we have Resolution, you'll have like something similar, and then that gets called out by Jacob Trance, so then you change it to something impossible. It's like, Actually, it was Retribution. Like just putting a B on Lucian. Like, come on, bro, stop. Things like of this nature. What was the name of the title? My favorite, I think, was Hard Weight or some shit like that. It was just really bad, and I always found it funny. And not to be like, oh, hey, I'm the good guy or nothing. But if you know me, you know that usually if someone has a problem, I'll try to help. Back then, I had more free time, so I would be like more open to helping communicate. But it's just like, come on, man, what are we doing here? Cut it out. Do your own thing and leave us the fuck alone. You know what I mean? It's not our problem. It's yours. So eventually, after like the fucking 19th time, they fold. And I don't know what the fuck happened to any of them. But I do know that we wound up getting an influx of their people, and they're still here to this day. Like, that includes Paul Pugh, that includes Jacob Trance, and I think that's where it ends, but there was more than that before back in the day. But back in the day, we wound up having, the funny thing is, two of their loudest people, like, came to OCW super somber, like, hey, man, I know I said a lot of shit, but, you know, I'd like an opportunity. I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever, son, go ahead, knock yourself out. Even back then, I was fucking being nice to people that I didn't have to be. I'm not a dick, but yeah. So that so that was 07, I guess, right? Fun times. Yeah. So you know, don't copy, don't sweat the technique, I guess. So then the story continues that we go on. 08 does okay, and then we hit a bit of a dark period, I guess, in which the games themselves are starting to have issues. I remember at one point, I wonder if I could find it on Wayback Machine by any chance. Probably not, but let me see. Because at one point, I decided around 2009, hold up, Wayback Machine, to get into MMA. At the behest of somebody. I think it was Nick Cage. I'm not sure. Let me see. UFC 2009 game. Undisputed. Yeah, when did this game drop? Okay, so May 19th, UFC Undisputed dropped. And within, I want to say, maybe within a month, by June, OCW had OCF. In 2009, I opened up an MMA league. And the funny thing about the MMA league was, it was an OC fight. Yep. It was actually lasted, looking back at that, it looked like it lasted almost 2 years. Holy shit. Looks like I closed the doors in 20. Wow, time just bleeds together, bro. I do not remember OC fight back then like that. That is crazy to think about it in that retrospect. So anyway, so I opted to do MMA, and I always say that the thing about that was interesting was how lucrative it was, because I was able to sell fight camps for a pretty penny. I think it was, I'm not going to mention, we're not talking numbers here, but long story short, to get 4 people in your fight camp was not cheap, and good times. The funny thing about that is OC Fight paid for OC Fight and OCWFED at the time. So, yay, I guess. So within that time, that was part of the absentee dad sensation phase, where basically I left OCW under the care of Nate Ortiz, who was in school full time, college, and I believe Leon Hart. And I think that's it. And yeah, was not good. I would basically come back to like oversee little bits and bobs, or to put together the pay-per-view, I believe, and that was kind of it. It was checked out of the week-to-week stuff, and we ended up having things like, Vincent Valmont as a champion, KD back then. KD was a different KD then versus now is a whole different vehicle, but KD contending for the world title back then. Just a really weird, not great time for a lot of people in OCW. And then I didn't have the game. I think I got 2009 late. I actually had a lady friend. I had a lady friend buy me. I had one lady friend buy me 2009 because I wasn't gonna buy it because fuck that. I think I was okay with '08. I think I bought '08, but I know 9 and 10. I had somebody buy me because fuck that. I wasn't gonna do all that. But 9 most definitely, because 9 was disgusting. The 9 in 2000 WWE 2000 SmackDown vs. 2009, you had to level up your call, right? And in OCW the rules was 80 OVR, but you basically were forced to play the single player game to level up your guy. And what the thing is, you would stop at 80 and that's it. So some people will fuck up and they would get stuck at 81. And they're like, I'm not changing it, brother. This shit took like fucking 10 hours. I'm not doing it. I'm like, okay, what are you gonna do? So we didn't have any alternative characters because it was such a bitch to actually get the guys leveled up and que sera. So '08 was a little crazy. '09, Nate was taking a step back and basically school full time, so he really wasn't doing it. And we had Leon Hart doing taking care of the day to day, and that wasn't great. No offense to Leon, it was a little greasy. And then we go 2010. You know what 2010 is? 2000 is the Ambition era. We get like 4 kids, and Spider show up. You know, longtime booker, currently living legend Tiberius Dupree, Lucas Epps Dimsmore, aka the guy required, aka Dimsmore, aka Dim Delight, aka Shades of Dimsmore, Hideo Matsuda, which you may have seen on such places as Vince and Tony's shows. We're not equals. Ours is not real. His is real. I just wanted to specify I'm not a lunatic. Relax. Calm down. I'm not looking at EWR and claiming I know how to book. Anyway, who else? Patalomai, living legend. Love the guy. Hope to see him again someday. And then stupid fucking Spider. But again, these people came, and they came with a different mindset for OCW. And I'm going to go back to this is a slight divergence, and we'll go back to the thing. But they had an idea of what OCW could be, and then along with guys who came back like Paul Pugh, Mugen, Sean McGee, Bobby Minio, around these. Well, Bobby came later, but the idea was that they built a new foundation, and they kind of fought for that foundation, and that foundation is what we have now in the production area. But it was the precursor to that was Team Reliable. So just to bring that out, and what Team Reliable means is people that can be relied upon to do content, get stuff done, get shit done, and just kind of bring that work ethic into a time that wasn't the case. Although coming here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I remember the chat with them, and it was very like, they were all excited. I can't believe it, pumped up. And I said, give it a year, y'all ain't gonna feel the same way. They're like, no, never way. And then fast forward a year later, and it's like, you were right. Anyway, back to the show. To change the game, and we're not going to go through the whole Ambition era, but long story short, it was a bit of a resurgence somewhat in OCW, but it was weird because the bottom of the card, so to speak, was exciting, different, and exhilarating, and the top of the card was fucking, to lack of a better word, dog shit, dog water. And that's not to be disrespectful of the people who participated back then, but like the fact of the matter is that like the greats were gone. There was no Majin. There was no RD Money. There was no Versus. There was no Nick Cage. There was no Nate Ortiz. There was nobody. It was like Resolution main events ending on either a grounded clothesline or a German suplex, depending on who you ask. Because at this point, I can't even remember. But it was not a good time. It was a very strange time back then. Like I remember, like to even want people to step up. They're like, "Nah, I'm good," and it wasn't because of lack of like I don't know how to express this. To say like, okay. Like Aries had to fight somebody fucking 3 times, and that wasn't because he wanted to. That was because there was nobody else. And I was like, ugh. Like it was like when you have someone like, hey, it's time for you to step up, and they're like, nah, I'm good. And it's not because they don't want to step up, but it's like I would have to play or face those people, and I'd rather not. That's crazy, but that's what that was like. Funny time, but it was a bit of a resurgence in OCW, to be honest with you, and that carried on to 2011, which carried on to 2012. I think we kind of hit our stride. 2011, 2012, it got pretty good. It was pretty solid. I was back being invested into the shows. I was actually doing more work and whatnot. And it was a good time. Like, the games were actually better too. We had Story Designer, and Story Designer was used and abused in all facets, so it was fun. We had a couple of it's funny because at this point people stop PvPing, like they don't want to do it anymore, so they just start doing like highlight reel stuff because you had the highlight reel now. So they were doing that stuff, and they were doing, like the simulated shit. And the funny thing about that is that if you look back, they're there somewhere, but OCW was like the first ones to start doing it. But unfortunately, more specifically me, I was very, very adverse to YouTube, like super adverse to YouTube, because I don't like the idea of people being in control of our content. And the thing is that when I started using these services, they offered me unlimited hosting, so I took that to heart. Now, while I didn't try to go crazy, you have to understand that from 2004 to the time that 2020, where the .net got hit with something, it was about 365 gigs. So that was a good year. That was almost like 15 years of no issues. I mean, it was slow, but what are you gonna do? And then .net, CCW had 125 gigs, and then TV had about 250 gigs. So this is why I am very stringent with my size specifications. Now we have outside, we use YouTube exclusively, and then we have backups that need to be backed up more and more, but you get the idea. And then here's another quick sidebar that I need to add, and we're going to start with that sidebar right now. And before we get a little away from it, with OC Fight, the MMA site, that was, that allotted money that can be put into OCWFED. But at the end of the day, I did not enjoy OC Fight because it was very meta based, and these people were annoying. I don't like MMA nerds, so MMA fighting nerds are even worse. It was just I wanted people to build up their fights like modern day UFC is now, with kind of a little bit of shit talking, whatever, have some good fights. But everybody was just basically doing Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, whatever the meta spec was, or I think it was kickboxing and judo, whatever the hell it was. Cass would know what it was. There was a little bleed over between OC Fight closing and someone asking if they can use it for their lore, and they did, as I guess the new owner or whatever. Anyway, long story short, V4 came around. That was Ron purchased V4, gave me the license. We found new hosting, which gave really good performance for the first couple of years. V4 had a lot of performance, good performance, but the problem with V4 was that it was very, very, all the stuff that we had in V3 and V2 was gone. It was very, very bare bones, and it was, a lot of the immersion was lost, I guess. And that and the changing of the times kind of gave to the effect of what happened when we started hitting our little downturn, I guess. So just wanted to give Ron thank you for that, and give blessings to Ron, because Ron was very pivotal in keeping OCW afloat when things got crazy again with the migration from V3, which was buggy as hell at towards the end and very laggy and slow, into V4, which was, while not nearly as feature rich, was at least at the time functional and working well. So let's go back to it. So we did these shows, and I don't know if they were every week. I think they were every 2 weeks. But they were basically fully produced shows. And I think we did, I don't know if the total is 4 or 12, but they were usually called, I think, Unleashed. I'm not 100% sure. But that was the Team Reliable era, which would form into the Hoots, which would form into the production era. That's a whole different story. We'll touch on that real quick, too. It's like a history lesson. I'm all over the place. It's like hardcore history. Maybe I'll split this into 2. Nah, fuck that. Just a big old me talking shit. Enjoy it or not, I don't care. So we have 2011. Funny thing about 2011 is we're kind of, there's like a light at the end of the tunnel. The top of the card is changing. It's becoming exciting now. The dead weight or the bleh is either phased out or going away. So there's a bit of optimism in the air. So with optimism leads to like more creativity, and creativity leads to more production, and more production leads to feelings getting hurt, I guess. So long story short, a bunch of people like kind of opt out, and basically we kick into full gear on miniature production with the highlight reel and everything else, and things are good. You got people coming in, people going out. It's a good time. The culmination of that would be Ambition 50, because all of the dead weight, the do nothing, the lazy Maisie, the thirst buckets, the dead end asses, the bums, the cheesers, the jerks, the jabronis, they're gone now. and Ambition 50 is what you get left. And if you look at the forum posting for that show, you dilute it, you can see there's a significant shift in OCW. A good old fun time. And then eventually what happens is that, as with all good things, you know, the games change or whatever, and things get slower. So we're kind of moving along, and you know, nothing remarkable happens. We have Resolution 8, which was a lot of the Ambition people, they see that's their resolution, and that's their favorite resolution. So you can check that out. That's actually on the site if you want to check it out. You can check that out. The remix, I think. But we kind of hit like kind of a brick wall, because now, since PvP and clans aren't really big of a thing, I'm not advertising so much anymore. And, you know, people are just aren't like, we're not getting people anymore. Like, people are just not really coming to fucking, you know, not coming around for the milkshake. So it's a weird time. So we're not like bad, but we're like not doing. I remember the gauge. Someone said this best. They said you can gauge how well OCW is doing by what J does. So if you look at Resolution 9, the card is basically just a poster with text on it. So that should let you know how I'm doing right there. That should give you all the indication, all the whatever you need to know about how I'm doing or how everything's doing in OCW. 9 was okay, nothing remarkable, but we have like this shift with, I believe it's WWE 14. So we have 14. 14's okay. It's nothing bad. It's pretty okay. It's you know, I don't remember if it's 14 or if it's 13, but one of them we had to change FPR because since it was so easy to reverse, matches would just basically be 25 minutes of reversing because you could not get a grapple in. So what we had was called first contact, which is basically whoever grapples first gets the grapple, and that's it. You getting the move put on you because fuck this game. And that was like the beginning of the end. So at this point and we're actually making pretty good time, so it'll probably be less than 2 hours. Sorry if you're still here. Whatever. So now we get to a funny position. So we're put in the position of WWE 15 on the 360 or Xbox One. And that, my friends, is a choice that will forever be etched in OCW history. Now, I kind of want to talk about the precursor to that, but honestly, negative connotations are not necessarily needed in this. This is 20 years of celebration, so there's no need to bring up the doldrums of stupidity and mushmouthiness. So I'll say this. With the option was 360 or brand new razzle dazzle of Xbox One. Faster console, faster internet, better graphics, better connectivity, this, that, and the third. Well then, that was the sales pitch that Bobby Minio did. And we all, it's not we all, it wasn't a lot of us, but it was a few of us. So we said, fuck it. So we picked up, and let's just do this. WWE, let me want to see the dates on this. WWE 2K15 Xbox One. Let's see when this bitch dropped. Xbox One. Okay. Let's see. Oh, it's not even showing me like when it. Hold up. People ask, can I play? No. When did this bitch come out? That Xbox One. Let's see. Come on. Okay. So it looks like. When the hell did this game come out? Come on, brother. Give me the goddamn information. Okay. Looks like this game came out on October 18th, 2014. Okay. So we're doing all right for 2013. Nothing remarkable, but we're doing okay. But this is the next generation. This game, 2K15. So we make the jump. And to our surprise, the game runs better. The game is smoother. The game plays better. But there is a fundamental difference. The creative suite is very limited. The online suite is very limited. And basically, this is the bare bones of a wrestling game. By comparison, WWE 2K15 on Xbox 360 was essentially an upgraded version of WWE 14. So, had OCW stayed with 2K15 on Xbox 360, despite being last generation, what may have occurred would probably be way different, because we would have the options and toggles of 14 combined into 15 versus the next generation. So long story short, we get the game. We realize there's only 2 reversal animations. Movesets are very limited. I think it's either 4 or 8 in the front. I'm not sure. I think it's 4. Honestly, for the sake of my narrative, I want to say it's 4 grapples in the front because that sounds shitty and that sounds about accurate, but it's probably closer to 8, from 16 or 28 to 8. Anyway, that's all there is to it. Reversals are not super difficult, but there's only 2 animations, and one of them includes a Russian leg sweep. Basically, Russian leg sweep from behind, pause, no diddy, and then like an arm jack for the front or the elbow. That's it. It's very, very limited. So the game drops November 11th, and then we're gonna check the calendar on this bad boy to get more whatever. So I want to say that, yep, there it is. Wait a minute, this is not suiting my narrative, is it? Oh wait, no. Hold up. Oh, 2015. There we go. Sorry. So if the game drops November 11th, 2014, by 2015, this is also not suiting my narrative. I feel like something is. Oh, there it is. Yep. Wait, no. Hold up. Oh, okay. Yep, that makes sense. Okay. So anyway, as I was saying, we really didn't get out the gate with 2K15. Basically, we kind of died in January. We tried to keep it going a little tiny bit. And if you look at, this is where like the brain kind of bleeds out a little bit, because in my head, what I remember vividly was that basically January, nothing happened, and I was like, oh, fuck all this shit. Like, I think I feel like January of 2015, we had a show. It was super small and we stopped, but apparently we kept going a little bit. I'm trying to see how far we went. Okay, so I can tell her. Okay, yeah, so I can tell you one thing. On the January 1st edition of Riot, which is what episode is this? I don't fucking know what episode this is. But this is January 5th, 2015, episode 401. We had a 1-page Riot. And then the next Riot was on the 12th. And that was also 1 page as well. And that was basically 1 match. And that was 1 match and 2 matches and 1 segment. And then episode 403 was also in January. I think we're trying to power through January at least. And again, we have 1 match, 2 match, 3 matches, 4 matches for this one. And this one is actually, which is funny to me, because I feel like this match was done in the summer, but apparently it wasn't. We have Tiberius Dupree versus Jordan Trance for the OCW World Heavyweight Championship. And I think this is when Tibby just came back to play this once, and that was it. And it looks like we have episodes in February. We have 1 episode in February. We have 2 episodes in March, 1 in April. And then then there's a break. From there, we don't have any matches from April till October of 2015. And I say that to say, actually, wow, it said 404 not found. Interesting. But yeah, it looks like we come back with the new version of Riot in November, actually. And that's what happened. So I'm assuming what happened is that this is where the narrative kind of shifts a little bit. I'm sorry if I'm rambling. I'm trying to regain my thoughts. So apparently, I assumed that we kind of died in January, but that's not the case. Apparently, we sputtered along very sadly with one episode a month or 2 episodes a month until April of 2015. And then at that point, we stopped completely. There was no resolution. There was no pay-per-views. And we didn't really pick back up until the end of November. And I say that because November of 2015. And I say that because that's over the summer. That's when Paul Pugh was basically and Bobby Minio were pushing for a resurgence with the new game that would be known as WWE 16. Let me find out when 16 came out. The only reason I want to know when this came out because it would be important for the story. So let's see when this one came out. 16. So past Jay looks for the specific date. That happens a lot. I just want to give grace to Bobby Minio and more specifically Paul Pugh for the simple fact that that was the determining factor in bringing back OCWFED, because at that point I was basically completely checked out. I think the idea floating at first with Pugh was we make it to Lucian 10 and we put a pin in it. And I was like, I think I'm good with that. I think I can do that. I'm all right with that. I'm okay with that. But it took a lot of convincing. I was done, basically. Like, I had a good run, and I just did not want to do it anymore. And I think this was the time when I was also fiddling with micro podcasting kind of stuff and potentially YouTube content, and whatever, getting assimilated or acclimated to put in my ugly mug on fucking YouTube for a spell. But long story short, he was like, just give it a one, the old college try to at least, say that you went out on your own, like you went out the way you wanted to, versus just like, all right, fuck it, we're done. So we did that. New coat of paint, which we'll talk about, and back to the action. Thank you, Pew. You pig. So WWE 2K16 dropped on October 27th. So basically what we did is we kind of wrote it out from April to November, no OCW. And at that point, we came back with WWE 2K16 and at this point, the site got a new coat of paint, nothing drastic. We updated the FPR, we updated the handbook. Actually, Bobby Minio updated the handbook, and shout out to Bobby Minio for that, because it was a really well done, comprehensive, and concise form of penance for the awful idea of going to next generation 2K15. So he did a wonderful job. He did such a great job that people stole his work and said it was theirs because they're fucking hacks and frauds, but I digress. So now we're in 2K16, which is October 27th, 2015, and that is moving into 2016, the year. And that's when a lot of people in this generation, like Rex and B17, that's when they came. B17 arrived in 2015, Rex maybe in 2016. The people who are old now, but kind of your generation, I guess. And it's interesting because Jacob Trance opts to have, he pushes for a PS4 division, and he pushes for a PS4 division, I guess because he has PS4 now or whatever. It's PS4, right? Yeah, I think it's PS4, pretty sure. And, the gimmick is because he ain't had nobody to work with on Xbox, but I don't even think he had Xbox at this point. So he pushes to his PS4 division, and, it starts off rough. The idea with the PS4 division was that we were going to bring back the Bombshell division from the Xbox 360, the Xbox people, and the idea was that the Bombshells would provide, what's it called? Filler, I guess, at the time. So if you have like 2 or 3 Bombshell matches, you can have, 1 or 2 PS4 matches, and as the PS4 roster grows, you can phase out the Bombshells, and that's kind of what we did. So this is where everything gets a little bit crazy, because we have instances of stupidity, certain people journey around this time, and we're not going to go through all that nonsense because it doesn't need to be brought up. But we have stupid people, cancerous people join up. We have an influx of Xbox and PS4 people, and just a whole bunch of whirlwinds of whatever. This is what I like to call 2016 to 2018 of March, the participation era, just because the fact that while we were bumping and rocking and rolling, it was very chaotic. So to give you an example, if someone was multi-console like PS4 and Xbox, like the difference between fighting a PS4 person versus fighting an Xbox person was night and day. So Xbox, you would have a good match. PS4 would be dog shit, basically. And the idea was, not the idea, but basically was because all the veterans were on Xbox at the time. And then as we got more dual console people, that kind of changed out. But you can look at someone like B17 who joined in the PS4 era and was given many a job in the PS4 era and managed to spectacularly fail at all of those jobs. Like, I don't remember the conversation, but I do remember that I had the wise idea to make him a booker of Turmoil. And that did not work out well at all because he liked to have vendettas on people and grudges. Some rightfully so when you look at things in retrospect. So I'll let that slide. And then at one point we had Spider booking Turmoil, and Spider had no business booking Turmoil because he never watched Turmoil, but I digress. And then at one point we had Spider and Jacob Trance or Jamie booking Turmoil, and the gimmick goes that Spider would book garbage and horseshit, and then Jamie would get blamed for it, and it was hilarious. Yeah, so that was very tumultuous. So it took a lot of elbow grease and a lot of work to kind of smooth things over, because the other thing that happened also was, and then there became a console specific I don't want to say rivalry, but in 2016, 2017, there was a very, very real and a very, very visceral disdain for the opposite console. Like there was a really not even the opposite console, the opposite show, because Turmoil and Riot were very, very different shows. So Turmoil would be very structured like old OCW, and then Riot would be, and the Turmoil would be structured as in kind of this chaotic, like inmates run the asylum type thing. It was very, very, like, you can talk to Cassidy Hayes. At one point, Cassidy Hayes was the first and only Turmoil champion, and he had lost it to Tank, who basically cheated, and then there was a redo or whatever, and then he cheated again. It was really bad. I think one day I'll sit down with Cass, we can talk about early PS4, but it was not good at all. Most notorious was B17, who right now is a gem. Obviously, he's been a gem for the longest time, but back then, persona non grata, and as like I said, the infamous thing was that in an effort to kind of bridge the gap, we would start booking Riot matches on Turmoil or Turmoil matches on Riot just so people could shut the fuck, like, just kind of, basically kind of integrate the rosters, because it was just so like, what the fuck? It was crazy. There's a podcast about it. You can find the podcast on the YouTube. It's I know it's fun because you have like a Riot and a Turmoil, and you see like Spider-Man pulling them together. That was like a chat we had with B17 from Turmoil and Pew from Riot, because it's just interesting listen in a time capsule back in the day, as a matter of fact. So look it up if you want. You can listen to it. Maybe I'll put it in the description or whatever. But looking back, like I said, infamously, B17 was he was booked on a Riot match, and he infamously said that basically like, fuck Riot, I'm gonna do what I want. I'm not going on Riot. I'm just gonna get DQ'd. And as he said it, he did it, and he got banned for a very long time. And look at him now, CCW champion. But it just goes to show you that everybody can have a fucking redemption arc, I guess. But eventually in 2018, some things were removed from OCW, and slowly but surely things got better, mostly in part due to the efforts of the Turmoil 4, which is B17, Jacob Trance, Austin Lee, and Rex, essentially our version of the SmackDown 6, who were holding it down. And it was a very entertaining time. Everything was on the up and up, and the quick and dirty is that I took over general manager duties. I don't remember when I took over the duties for Riot. This is a little bit of a time capsule too. I just remember that being told that by Pew that I wouldn't last a week, and then it's been like now I think close to 9-8 years, I think, whatever. That's the power of spite when you think about it. But bringing it back to the current era, it just seems incredible that once you excise problematic entities, the overall temperature of a community can change drastically. So where at one point in 2016 and 17, where there would only be maybe a small, less than a handful of people doing content over the summer became like this blossoming thing of people dropping content left and right, where it would be seen as just one person maybe writing for a show and then having maybe a couple little instances here and there from random side characters. Now you see everybody interacting and everybody doing content and everybody collaborating and everybody doing all kinds of things. It's interesting to see how these things play out when you have, certain types of individuals that are basically just not needed to be present, like toxic individuals, if you will. Go figure. Especially someone like me say OCW toxic individuals. What? You get the idea. You get the joke. But that brings us to the production era where we're at now, and I think like someone will have you say that it's me that kind of ushered it in, and I don't believe that. I think it's really, it boils down to a certain set of individuals, one more specifically in Jake Allen, providing just having that, I'm not sure what the word is for it because I'm not as eloquent in my verbiage because of my fucking upbringing, I guess. Public school system, baby. PS 106. Anyway, he brought a certain whatever, je ne sais quoi, to OCW that winded up becoming this thing that we still have now, where we have all pay-per-views are fully commentated, all main events on the shows when we can do it, we've pretty much had a pretty good run, are commentated. It just gives that extra layer of authenticity and passion to the project and to the community, and that was in no small part to him. And then, as they say, and I hate using these platitudes, but it's true, a rising tide lifts all the boats. So when you see one person doing something like and then someone else tries it, and then that becomes the norm. You have it from everything. You can see the first couple of video promos from someone like Empress, and now everybody does video promos. You'll see like a couple spectacular entrances by Cassidy Hayes back in the day, and now most people have really good entrances. You look at things like Trons or face scans or the use of AI voice or the use of AI images. All these things happen because someone brings it in, and then it just kind of snowballs and it adds to the overall product. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. But that's where we're at now in the production era, and I think that's in no small part to people like Jake Allen. So I'm forever grateful for that. The same way I'm forever grateful to guys like Paul Pugh for helping, light that spark under my ass and bring back the petty spiteness that sometimes is needed to fuel this place, just because it be like that sometimes. And then shout out to the people who participated throughout the eras, because here we are now in the modern day OCW that's pretty not that bad. And if you look at the things like the website now, it's a pretty good site. It's a little tiny bit outdated. They got to get back on that. It snowballs, and you get a big pile of work, and you got to go through your work when you come back from vacation. But you get the point. And here we are now. We had the introduction in 2018, early 2018 maybe, of Russ Cole, El Parker, Jake Allen Quartz, and a few other few people. Valkyrie, Horse, Rex was more 2015, but he really didn't come into his own until maybe 2018, and countless others that I can't fucking think to name right now. Maybe at Max Edwards, I guess. Who the fuck knows? Maybe not. I don't know. Whatever. Adam Solis if you want, and etc. 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 And that helped bring forth the production era, which is where we're at now. Okay, you see how I kind of swept it all together, brought that all together. The production era where we're at now, where we just do, good shit on a weekly basis for the most part. Pretty good. But the one thing is, I forgot to mention about the participation era, which is 2016 to 2017, and 2016 to 2018 in March, rather. So to give you an example of the participation era, we would have Twitch shows, no commentary, and the Twitch pay-per-view would basically be, I think our record was 14 matches in a show with a pre-show. So everybody got to be on the show, and I remember some of these shows, and I'm just sitting there going, but why am I like, it's because the thing is, you'll have like one good Xbox match, and then you'll have like 4 shitty PS4 matches, and I mean shitty because FPRs all over the place, like brazen, just awful, man. And it's just so many. So if the show starts at the, and I'm trying to remember, I don't think I started doing the European hours until Cassidy Hayes started bugging me about it, and that would be 19, I think, or late 2018, early 2019. And so these shows would start like at maybe 5 or 6 or whatever, and it was just nonstop, like 14 matches, be there for 5 fucking hours, and I was like, this is what hell looks like. I guess this is what hell feels like. Like never have I been so like, just disenfranchised with everything, especially with the division and the divisiveness between Riot and Turmoil and PS4. And obviously there was reasons why, but again, bad things happen, and hey, you get them fixed. Every time someone tries to fucking sweep the leg, we counter punch, we toss a suplex, blood and wine, Bob's your uncle, eat a dick, get fucked, nerd, and you know, we're back to where we're at. So now we're here in 2024, 20 years later, still kicking ass. Next week is this Saturday is a pay-per-view, as a matter of fact. No, Sunday rather, I'm sorry, Sunday is a pay-per-view, and called half of it with Jake. Don't hate it, pretty good. So we're in a good place, despite what people may say or think or believe or whatever. I think we're doing great. I think there's always room for improvement. And that can sometimes muddy the waters, because what one person's critique might be considered an opinion versus, you know, what can be a fact or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, you should never think that your shit don't stink, and you should always be striving to improve. I always use H2O as the example, because he's someone I can just keep it a buck with 100%, and it's not like, how can you? It's like, he's like, okay, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna improve, because you need that. You need to improve, and a lot of times, you know, you're not where you need to be, or you just need to change up things. And if you're not open to criticism or open to changing, or even open to giving your opinion, whether it's wrong or right or whatever, it's open to debate, and it's good for discussion. I like discussion. I like varying opinions. Sometimes someone can see something that I didn't see, or I can see something that people won't see, or sometimes people think they're slick trying to hide something that we can see, and it's like, talk about it, like from the top to the bottom. Get your opinion out, even if it's dumb or wrong. It's fine. Someone will tell you it's dumb or wrong. It's your opinion. You're entitled to be a fucking idiot. What the fuck? What are you gonna do? You gotta big time somebody sometimes. I don't know. But at the end of the day, there's always room for improvement. Is basically what I'm trying to say. Always. If you sit on your laurels, you'll never grow or develop. If I stood the same exact way, we wouldn't be here now, because certain things would have gotten in the way, especially hubris. And I don't necessarily have that. I don't think I do. Do I? Maybe. Maybe that's a topic for discussion. Who the fuck knows? But I think at the crux of it, just from a week-to-week standpoint, we do what no one can do consistently. And I say that because I look at from 2004 to the present. But if you want to be nasty, look at 2018 to the present and tell me who else can do what we do at the level we do, with the consistency that we do. Because that's the kicker. Because everybody thinks they could fucking be the chef, but they can't open the restaurant every day. The restaurant's open pretty much every day. We cooking every day. So if you want to come here and do it and cook, like, you know, once a week, cool. But can you do it every day? Well, actually, no, we do it every Friday and then once on Sunday. But you get the idea. You know what I mean. Every Friday, but can you, what if you do it once a month? How about that? There you go. Exactly. Is it better if it's once a month? Not really. Is it? I don't know. Who am I to tell you what to do with your life? But yeah. So all in all, thank you for listening to this historical mumbo jumbo on where we got to. I'm sure there was plenty of shit I missed out on. There's like there's so many like nuanced things and miscellaneous things, but I don't want to be bothered with them, and sometimes I just don't even care enough, and sometimes I don't even remember. But at the end of the day, remember this though, what OCW does. OCW is very good. OCW is extremely good at filtering out the bullshit. So like, if you're a person, you could probably be here for a little while, but like, you're not going to get anywhere successful, because the is going to rub off and people are going to go and you're going to get excised. I'm not saying anyone's like that now. I'm just saying in general, like nature, we always seem to bounce back and course correct. And I just wanted to take this time to look at over 20 years in a brief synopsis of 20 years of OCW. But there's been many highs and many lows, and many times I've been looking at this like, what the fuck am I even doing? But my thing is that at the end of the day, like and the funny thing is I say this all the time, but now it's kind of just like this albatross, I guess, or this is the thing albatross around your neck? Is that the saying? Is that the saying how it goes? I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's an outlet for people. It's a hobby that people take seriously, and they should, because, you know, if you're going to put in the time and the work, because we'll have people sign up here and they show up and they're like, oh, blah, blah, and then nothing happens because they either aren't prepared for the work, don't know what the fuck they have to do, or just don't ask questions. I don't know what to tell you. But my thing with this place is that whether it's my burden, cross, or whatever to share, the idea is to give people a platform to do this kind of hobby thing. It's like one long wrestling based D&D campaign, I guess, if you want to be like nasty with it. I think it is. And I mean, you look at through the years, even the recent, like if you look at the production era, just all the we've had musicals, we've had vehicular based assaults, we've had invasions, home invasions, we've had battles for space and time, we've had, you know, all kinds of just a medley of mayhem, carnage, chaos, and confusion that only the OCWFED community can produce. And it's weird because we're a niche of a niche, and no one has to put in this much work for such little reward. The reward is showing up on a fucking stream every Friday usually, and once on Saturday every month, watching what your constituents and your peers do, judging appropriately, critiquing, having a laugh, and enjoying the company of others. So at the end of the day, 20 years later, I'm just happy that at the bare minimum, I've allowed people to make friends with the people that they would never probably ever encounter without this place. So wow, I'm gonna get misty. Oh no. Oh, I'm getting misty. Oh Lord, we're getting emotional, brother. I just find it cool that me of all people was actually able to build something out of nothing. And despite, like, you know, people or whatever trying to sabotage from within, from without, you know, whatever kind of goofy shit they had, like, it still persevered. I don't know if it's out of sheer spite, persistence, determination. I don't know what it is, but, like, I'm grateful for that, I guess. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm just glad I was able to do that. And I'm glad that I was able to, I don't know, like, help people, I guess. Not help people, but help people connect. Like, even if you don't fuck with me, which is fine, like, you're still able to find your people in your tribe or whatever. I don't know, it's weird. I'm not Jake. I can't contextualize some of this shit. Like, I'm very apish. So, you know, you can be lifetime friends. God damn it, why am I getting emotional? Fuck. You know, going to other people's weddings, going across the world to meet other people that you met in this goofy ass fucking hobby. So, if I did one thing right, that's it. You're fucking welcome. Why am I misty? God damn it. I'm going to talk to my therapist. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm just happy that y'all get the fucking sandbox. Okay. This is weird now. There's my emotions. Enjoy yourself, and 20 fucking years. I am really too old for this. Could be worse, though. All right. I don't think we're going to get another 20 years. Probably not. But we'll probably get another 5. Probably 10. I don't fucking know. Maybe at the bare minimum, at least 5. All right, we're done now. No more emotions. Only sadness and joy. We'll see you on Saturday. Okay, bye-bye. And thanks for listening. If you didn't want to listen, too bad. All right, peace. And remember, wipe your ass and go to sleep. But but seriously, emotions aside, from the bottom of my very, very black heart, I want to thank everybody who's participated from '04 to the present. There's so many names that I'm not going to name, but there's like everybody. So thank you so much for allowing this place to be your outlet and for giving us your time. I suppose that's the best way to put it. Whether you like me or whether you think I'm a piece of shit, thank you irregardless. It's a word I made up. Now we are done. Now the emotions are over. And now we will see you. Okay, Sarah. Have a good night or day or whatever. Bye.